We begin, guys, with Grant Delpit. Just one day after the Browns extended their best defensive player, they signed another one of their good defensive players in Grant Delpit. The contract details, do we have a graphic on that, Anthony?
It was 3 years, $48 million.
Okay.
16 was the annual average value.
Which is a lot for a safety.
He's now the 8th highest paid safety in football on AAV status. So,
which I think is about right. I think that's right about where he is.
He was honorable mention in ESPN's top 10 safety list. I think he had the 12th most votes. Some of the guys above him were rookies. Some of the guys below him were higher paid. So it's in the right range. But before we get into the numbers, you were at practice yesterday, and there was a really cool moment about how Grant Delpit learned about said contract extension that I hope you could give us a little insight into how you saw it through the camera lens.
Yeah. Well, what was funny is our photographer, Sean Dunnigan, who's out there. Shout out to Sean. Sean works his butt off. He's the best. But it was really funny because he had just come up to me and said, hey, Grant does have his helmet on. He's got a towel over his head. Yeah. I think he's holding in, like, watch him in case he puts his helmet on. And then not 2 minutes later, this tweet comes out and he gets the extension. And we found out about it, obviously the tweet, but then Andrew Berry walks out onto the practice field. He tells Grant, hey, I didn't hear him, but I assume he said, hey, deal's finalized, you're good to go. Grant puts his helmet on, goes over to the safety group and announces, hey, got a new deal. And the entire safety group got to celebrate with him, which I think was really cool. And it shows you why they want to extend him in the first place, was because he's so well thought of in the locker room. He is a very, very good player. But it goes back to establishing that culture, having that veteran leadership, the same reason they locked up Denzel Ward, same reason they're locking up Grant Delpit. I am a little surprised they did Grant Delpit because you just drafted Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who I think plays a similar position, but just like you can't have enough pass rushers, you cannot have enough good defensive backs, and the Browns locked up another good one.
Yeah.
Before you give your thoughts on Delpit, Bull, I'm curious. Was this the shortest hold-in in NFL history? Because I think it lasted.
It was like 10 minutes.
It lasted 8 minutes from when practice started to when the tweet of Barry came. It was an 8-minute hold-in for Grant Delpit, which I do think, all jokes aside, sets the record for the single shortest hold-in or hold-out in sports history.
I mean, they couldn't have settled it 10 minutes earlier? What happened?
I'm sure the lawyers were getting their billable hours. Like, you know what, we're going to let this go a little longer.
Are they fining him for those 8 minutes? $1.50.
That would be hysterical if they give Grant the chance like $36 is what you owe.
Do you think Barry walked up to the social media team, tapped him on the shoulder, and went, "Hey guys, watch this"?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. What is the contract? 46?
48.
48 million.
16 per.
That would be funny if the contract was instead $47,999,000.
It took out like the $8.
$998.50.
35 guaranteed.
Yeah.
So
the last year
could be out. We've talked
I got no problem with this. My first reaction with Denzel Ward was like, yeah, he's going to be old. But then I got over that quickly. Listen, I kill the Browns for most things, and they deserve it. But they do a good job in general of re-signing their good players. Now, they haven't had that many good players to re-sign, but Denzel Ward's an excellent player, and Grant Delpit's a very good player. So you sign him up. I don't have a problem with that. Ultimately, you don't get, like, the Browns are in a tricky cap situation.
They're in a weird spot,
because of the bad things they've done, mostly Deshaun Watson, and kicking some money down the road. But it's never really hurts you when you sign a good player, especially at a non-quarterback position, because it doesn't ultimately, and the Browns are not afraid to spend, which is the only positive you could say about ownership, is they're not afraid to spend. And with the cap continuously flying up, I mean, the amount that the cap has jumped in the last decade is crazy. And it's going to continue to do that. The Browns will have some flexibility. And once Watson is finally off the books, or at least the crux of Watson is off the books in the next 2 years, things will get a lot easier. Yeah. Plus these offensive linemen that they all kicked it down the road. And then after 2 more years, that'll be gone. So
you can criticize Andrew Berry for a lot, and deservedly so.
Definitely.
So I am continually impressed, and I've talked to people in the league who agree. Yeah. His ability to cap gymnastics his way out of just about any situation is actually pretty impressive.
Well,
they have been in
part of that situation. That's more Haslam.
That's the owner.
Yeah.
But he's good at finagling his way through things.
I hear you, but like our guy Xavier P., who I go at it with all the time.
He just texted me a second ago.
Because Xavier P.'s trying to argue that Andrew Berry's done a better job as GM than Kobe Altman, which is patently absurd. But, Kobe Altman's team has gone deep into the playoffs multiple times.
Yes.
I'm certainly no Kobe apologist. I've killed him plenty of times. But to say Andrew Berry overall has done a better job is ridiculous. Yeah. But he constantly gives Andrew Berry credit for re-signing the guys. And you want to give him credit for drafting Grant Delpit, because he did draft Grant Delpit.
Delpit was, yeah, he did.
Fine. That's fine. But Jimmy's willing to spend more than other teams are. And I give Jimmy credit for nothing but that.
And being willing to pay up front, which allows you to then make other moves.
Right. And Berry and his staff do a good job with the cap gymnastics, but they're only able to do that because Jimmy is okay with kicking the can down the road. If Jimmy was like most owners and didn't allow that, or didn't allow it as much as Berry's done it, the Browns would have been in terrible shape because of some of these contracts.
Yeah, and if that was a different scenario, then they would have a different. They're only doing that because they'd have a different philosophy.
And listen, Berry did a nice job with the 25 draft. I hope he did a good job with 26 draft. I think he did, but we don't know yet.
Right.
And that's positive. And maybe he's turned the corner as a GM, and I'm open-minded to that. But
it's almost like something changed when Colorado got a new president.
Yeah, I
don't know, but that just
seems, Jay's conspiracy theory. This idea that Andrew Berry had no power when DePodesta was here and now has all the power is absurd. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I don't buy that.
With Jay Crawford.
That's right. It's conspiracy theories.
Where's my tinfoil hat?
Yeah, exactly.
When I saw the Delpit news yesterday,
at
first I was like, that's a little more than I thought he would get, but it doesn't matter. I thought
doesn't
it'd be,
matter.
If
I thought a guy was going to get 13, he gets 16, I don't care. I don't think it's
a bad deal. But the one thing that kind of struck me, and we could argue, debate, is this the right way they should operate? Is this the wrong way? But my thought was, they signed Denzel Ward the day before. They signed Grant Delpit. This is not a team that's operating like a team that's in rebuild/tank mode. Like, you don't re-sign some of these guys if you're not actively trying to get out of that. Now, the defensive side of football and the offensive side of football are two very different things, and I totally understand that until they figure out the quarterback situation, nothing else really matters in terms of wins and losses. I get that. But a team that is actively trying to tank, which football teams can't do, and Todd Monken's not going to go out there and actively try and lose games, I don't think is operating by giving Denzel Ward the highest paid defensive back contract in football, and then following that up the very next day and making Grant Delpit a top 10 paid safety in football. So it was just...
I don't agree with that, Mike. I don't think one has to do with the other.
Shoot.
I think you could argue that moves they made in the offseason when they brought in free agents and, signed offensive linemen, that's a sign that they're not tanking.
Well, they could have traded them for assets and acquired more picks for the future, and they decided to go the opposite route and lock up their best defensive players.
Right, but that's for the future. They don't. It's not about this year. They had these guys under contract already. They are playing for the future. They're not like... They traded Myles Garrett. If they were trying to win this year, they wouldn't have traded Myles Garrett.
I do agree with that part.
I mean, so they are playing for the future, but they think that they can turn it around after this year quickly, which is possible. We talked about this yesterday. I think it's possible if they get the right quarterback or if Shedeur is the quarterback. So if you think you can be good next year, which is not crazy, why let Grant Delpit go? Why trade Denzel Ward when he's still a top 10 corner? So I don't think it means that they're not, realizing that the Browns they're not idiots. Andrew Berry's a smart guy. He knows they're not a contender this year. He understands that.
It boils down to you got these two guys that you signed and you extended at positions that don't directly affect your record going into next year. They're important pieces. They're pieces you want to have.
Yeah.
Having an all-pro corner and an all-pro safety is not going to get you 10 more wins.
Right. And even if you hadn't extended them but just not traded them, they would have been here anyway.
Exactly.
Which was a likely scenario.
I think when you talk about rebuilds, there's a misconception of rebuild means you got to burn it down to the ground and rebuild
exactly.
That's not realistic. I know the Browns did that before, but how'd that turn out? It was miserable for those years.
Right.
So you can retool as a rebuild and accept, you know what? Unless lightning hits 10 bottles, we're not going to win the Super Bowl this year, but we can have the foundation and start building for the future. And that's what they're doing.
And tearing it down, if you think you could be good next year, even in 28, Denzel Ward will probably still be a good player. Certainly Grant Delpit, there's no reason he won't be a good player in 28. So, and tearing it down, like trading everybody would be stupid because you have a number of good young players.
Yeah.
You need some veterans to lead the way.
Well, that's and I guess maybe I phrased it wrong, but I feel like there's and Zach, like I'll use Zach as Zach. We talked about this yesterday
with
Zach
the Denzel move.
With a Denzel move, and I'm sure he felt the same way about Delpit, which was like, hey, if you're going through a rebuild, tear.
Right.
My point is, we can argue whether they should or shouldn't operate like that, or that should or shouldn't be the mindset. They're not, as a franchise, operating in that mindset to align with what Zach said he would do if he was.
Which I really like, because when you burned it down the first time, you lost all. I know the culture was bad, and you needed a hard restart. The culture right now is not terrible, and they're bringing in high character guys, and they're
keeping the high character.
Keeping the high character guys, and you want, when that quarterback comes in, whether that's Dante Moore, whether that's Baker Mayfield, whether that's Mikey McNuggets, you want the guy coming in to have an established culture, an established locker room, ready to go, so that you can just bam, go on that rookie contract and be a contender. If you burn it down and start completely over, that's not going to happen.